Welcome, everyone. So right now, I'm here in the Rinse and Size studio, joined by very, very, very special guests who we will all get to know in a second. And we're here to celebrate International Women's Day. I'm going to just go around the table and I'm going to ask you to, in a nutshell, quickly tell me who you are and what you do. And we'll start with you, the iconic DJ Flight.
Thank you. I will accept that.
Absolutely.
I'm Flight. I've been a DJ for 23 years. I started in 97 on pirate radio and had my first couple of gigs that year as well. I've done various forms of radio, pirate, community, national, with the BBC, internet. I'm currently a radio producer with the Prison Radio Association. So ordinarily, I'm based in HMP Brixton and we work with a small team of prisoners making shows for a national station. We broadcast to a majority of the prison population in the UK. I've run a label, I've produced and released tunes. I've done quite a lot of stuff.
Do you understand why I said iconic? Are you listening back to what you've done?
Yes.
There we go. I mean, and we're going to get into it later as well, specifically in kind of the subculture that you've come up in and why it's so important to have a voice like yours in today's conversation. So thank you for that. Moving on, and we're going in no particular order. I'm just going, clockwise. Sarah Story.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Do tell, for people who don't know, who you are and what you do.
I'm a DJ and broadcaster and producer and singer. I've worked for radio stations like Capital. I worked in commercial radio. I'm doing stuff like for Radio 1 now. I'm a massive house head. Dance music is in my blood. I absolutely love it. And I've just started producing over lockdown, actually. That was something I got into. That's just kind of what I do all the time, as well as voiceovers. I feel like now you have to be able to do everything. And because of lockdown, doing voiceovers at home was so much fun and just easy. So I've been trying to juggle lots of different things at the moment, but I'm absolutely loving it.
Busy bee. Mm-hmm. I feel like everyone that we have in today's conversation wears multiple hats, and you, last but not least, Taylah Elaine, are also one of these people that wears a lot of hats. Tell us.
So I'm a DJ. I've been DJing for 4 years now. Doesn't sound that long after hearing you've been DJing.
I'm just old, don't worry about it.
So I'm a DJ, mainly a club DJ. I've done a lot of radio, but clubs are life for me. I also DJ for Parsaloo.
It's casual.
We love Pa. Everyone loves Pa. And I recently launched Plus One Radio during quarantine last summer, so August, so it's still a baby. It was originally a party that I used to throw, and it was something that I created to get myself into DJing, to like put myself on the bill. That was my way in. And so during quarantine, I launched it as a radio station just to like help keep DJs active. It was like something I needed, to be honest, to keep myself active and to just like invite fresh faces and women and people of color to a space where they can just like play whatever they want to play. There's like no real rules on Plus One. It's internet radio. It's a great thing.
Is that so? Is that also where the name comes from, Plus One, as if it were like a guest list, for example?
It's a guest list name, yeah.
God, I should have guessed this, but I have been wondering where that name comes from.
Where it came from.
Thank you guys so much for making time to do this. And hopefully, throughout today's conversation, we'll have moments to not only learn, but also maybe unlearn and to kind of share our experiences for other people to listen to and relate to, but maybe even, challenge their way of thinking. International Women's Day has always been a day where we celebrate the achievements of women around the world or people who associate themselves as being women, whether it's political, cultural, economical, you name it. And every year there's a theme. And this year's theme is Choose to Challenge. Now, we're going to start off by maybe starting with a little bit less positive, but always ending in the note on a positive note and a little bit more hopeful. I want to know from you all what some of the challenges have been that you've faced in your career so far. And if you could maybe think of a particular moment or something that's a little bit more of a tangible example, I'd love to hear that. Taylah, should we start with you?
Yeah, I've had a few.
Yeah, there we go. I knew you were ready.
I'm ready. Because I'm not very confrontational, so I used to be really quiet about stuff like this. And it used to really bug me when I used to walk away from situations and be like, why did that just happen? So I've had a few. So like I had a boyfriend at the time, and I'd go to a gig, and afterwards I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to go like get my money. And he's like, oh, they gave it to me. And I'm like, hold on a second. I don't know this person. They don't know me. They don't even know you're my boyfriend at this point, but they're happy to put my money in your hand. And I'm wondering if this was the other way around, if that would have happened. Certainly not. Definitely not. Yeah. And for all he knows, that could have been like my Tinder date or something, and he could have ran off with my money. I've also been in situations where like I think I was pre-recording for a radio station and the USB was corrupted. And I sat there and watched the producer give my boyfriend a very long apology. And I was like, what? Hello? I'm the one that just spent an hour recording. And it just, I didn't say anything. And also the guy I was with didn't say anything. And I kind of walked away like that definitely should have been addressed, that he just gave you an apology and not me. So I've had a few stuff. I've had a few like campaigns where like, I've helped get a male model and they've paid him more, and I've known that,
right,
and not said anything. So yeah, there's been a few for me.
Well, you've already said you used to be quite shy, or maybe not as confident to speak up in the moment. Where are you now when it comes to this type of stuff? I'm
not the exposing type. I'm not very like, I'm still quite the internet really scares me, so I'm still quite nervous to say things. Face to face, I'm a little bit more confrontational now,
right.
But I think that just comes with like confidence and maybe having things done a certain amount of time where you just get to the point where you're just like, you know what, this isn't okay. I also am surrounded by a lot of people that would step in now, which is great. I have a lot of males around me that would be like, hey, like that's not okay. And I think that gave me a lot more confidence to stick up for myself, because I feel like if you can't stick up for yourself, you can't really expect other people to do it for you. So, it is important to do that.
I guess also now as a mother of a brand new radio station, you will have people looking at you, no pressure, but looking at you to see how you deal with situations, which I guess is going to be great practice for you as well. Yeah. Because now you are responsible for other people. Again, no pressure, but I feel
you.
No, but it's good to hear the growth. Sarah, do share.
DJing wise, I went to a gig once, and the guy that was playing before me, I could just tell he was fuming that I was playing, and I was playing after him, and he was really quite hostile in the booth, and I was nervous because it was one of my first gigs, especially at that club. And I just said, let me know when you're playing your last track, just so I can kind of get on and, get ready, whatever, to get, so I can mix in.
DJ etiquette.
As you do, yeah. And he literally just left me 20 seconds and ran out the booth but didn't tell me. And I was like, mate, what are you doing? Luckily, I had my USB in. I was kind of hanging back. But he just left me 20 seconds and ran off. And luckily, my boyfriend at the time, he hit loop, thankfully. And I was like, right, because there was a whole club there. And I was just like... And he was, I just thought I'd never do that to anybody. I just thought it was, and it really set me off on the wrong foot to do the gig then. And it made me feel even more nervous because he did that. And radio-wise, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to get into trouble, but I've worked at places where it is very male-dominant. We know the radio industry is very male-dominant. But I'm fully aware and confident that I can, run a studio. I'm a radio presenter, but they sometimes used to make me feel like I always needed a man to hold my hand and lead the way. And it's like, give us a bit of credit. Like, we can do this. And that has frustrated me for a long time. I do think certain places are changing though. Like, certain companies aren't doing that. But there are some that are still thinking that it's men that lead in the way in the radio industry. And I'm like, it's really not. Listen to us. We are just as good as guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think things are definitely changing now in DJing wise, yeah.
What really surprises me is that already in two examples we've heard of moments where there was a man there in this, in both cases that who you were involved with, but it could have been just a best friend as well, and that kind of helping a situation, which makes me question, well, what if you date women? So let's say it's you and it's your girlfriend, or your partner standing there. Would they then have? Is there nobody being taken seriously? Do you know what I mean? And there's things that you do kind of question, like, will we always need men there in order for someone to make sure we're taken seriously?
Yeah.
That's another question. Flight. Do I say DJ Flight? Do I say Flight?
Flight's fine.
Flight?
Yeah.
Please tell me about some experiences you've had.
There's probably been a lot over the years, many.
I can imagine.
But I guess a lot of them I would have just brushed aside, especially in the earlier days. Taylah mentioned like feeling more confident now. It took me a long while to build confidence, and I think a lot of that came with age and just growing older and feeling more comfortable in myself and who I am. But yeah, I've had experiences with like male sound engineers coming and fiddling over with the mixer while I'm mid-mix or about to play another tune, just fiddling. It's like, well, if you want me to turn the levels down a little bit, which I asked you at the start of my set, do you want me to ride the gain a bit, or like so that he can control it via the desk?
Yeah.
But rather than do that, they'd rather come and manhandle during my set. Blatantly being paid less than colleagues at radio stations. There's been loads, a myriad of things. But then it also comes down to respect and recent situations, not just myself, but other women in my scene, drum and bass jungle, not being fully respected as the men are for having a very long career and achieving just as much, if not more, than a lot of the men. They would be my main ones.
I guess that also kind of segues into my next topic questions. We're all DJs in this room, and what we've seen is that there's still quite a big imbalance when it comes to, for example, lineups, right? If we're talking festivals or clubs. And at those events or those places where there is a bigger balance, it does seem that the names that are picked seem to be from quite a small pool of women or people who identify as women. And it almost creates an atmosphere of competition, it seems like, because it seems to be the same names being repeated over and over again. Sarah, let me start with you. What do you think leads to this? Is it our fault that we then feel it's a competition? Does it come from somewhere else? Why is it the same women that keep getting picked over and over again? Is there not enough research being done?
I think it's a lot of that. I think people, maybe bookers, are just going, all right, well, we know these people are good. We know they can sell tickets. It's just easy for them. It's like in going back to radio programming, it's easy for people to just like look at YouTube. Actually, go out and find some jocks. You don't have to find people just off YouTube. So like, I think it's about, they need to research more. They need to look just more, just like there's so many amazing DJs out there. And I think competition wise, I think maybe it's natural to feel a bit of competition between each other. I'm sure guys feel like that as well. But I think as women, we've almost been kind of brought up to feel like we have to compete in a kind of way, that kind of schoolyard kind of thing, and like to go against each other, when actually the best thing and the most incredible thing we can do is support each other, because we're really powerful together. So I don't think we should be trying to compete with each other, because I think that just makes it quite toxic. We just got to support each other. But yeah, I do think that you're right. I think you're seeing the same names, and there's just, as we've seen from lockdown on all the streams, how many amazing DJs are out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fly, I've got a question for you, just because you already kind of touch on this, having to prove yourself more as a woman. What we see a lot, I mean, I know that you've seen this, when we look at, for example, DJ sets that exist on the internet for people to watch, let's say boiler room sets or, Mixmag lab sets, the comments mainly coming from men kind of shows us that a woman has to kind of justify why she's there, whereas the male counterpart, who has the exact same resume, doesn't get questioned as much. Are these double standards? Why does this still happen?
Yeah, of course. I mean, society in general is still very sexist. It's still very misogynistic. So that's obviously going to bleed down into whichever subculture, if you want to call it that, or all parts of society it's going to bleed into. But yeah, there are definitely double standards. I feel, and a lot of other women I know and speak to and am friends with feel like we're constantly having to justify our existence in the music, whether that's a singer-songwriter or a DJ or a promoter. You have to work doubly hard for twice as long. You have to stay on top of your game 100% all the time. And as you said, that just doesn't apply to men. They're allowed to just simply exist, you know.
It's interesting. My next question, I mean, I do kind of want to hear your opinions on this one. I'll start with you, Taylah. How do you feel about tokenism in our industry? Is this something that you try to steer away from, or is it something that you use to your advantage? How do you feel about that? It's an interesting one though, isn't it?
It's frustrating. I mean, you steer away from it by just not being involved, but I really do think you can use it to your advantage. And if you know that, you know, you're good at what you do, why not? I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it sucks that it exists. But yeah, that's a sticky one.
How have you been made to feel aware that you were a token?
Not bluntly,
right?
But I'm very aware that, you know, they, as you said, like the portion of females on a lineup mainly is quite small. And I feel like sometimes it's, you know, you're booked because they need a female on the lineup for it to look fair. A lot of the time, not all of the time. I also feel like maybe more on the branded side of things, it is you know, they want someone that looks a certain type of way or like fits the brand, and that I feel like that comes with the industry, right? A little bit. It would be nice if they did consider that you could actually DJ too,
right?
You know, that would be nice. You know, but yeah, I mean, yeah, that's I think it would just be nicer if it, you know, if you have to fit a certain type of image or whatever, that's great, but can you focus more on the talent that you're booking, because that's what you're booking, right? You're booking someone that can play. So yeah.
Flight, talk to me about tokenism now, because you've seen the emerging of this topic, right, of this discussion from starting in 97, did you say it was?
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to the music and was involved in it before that, but yeah, actually as a DJ I started in 97.
So I think, you know, you probably have a really good perspective on how women have been kind of emerging into the scene, but also seeing people in the decision-making positions and how they actually deal with tokenism. How do you feel about this? Where do you stand?
There are, I think, other subgenres of dance music and other genres have been a little better and quicker at catching up to not appearing so tokenistic with their lineups and what they're doing. But with drum and bass and jungle, I think we're lagging behind a lot. And it's a shame because women have been involved in like rave culture from the beginning. Like even some of the earliest rave promoters were women, but they weren't really allowed to come to the forefront as much as the men. So you would find a lot of women in label manager roles, working as agents at agencies, running as men's shit basically for them. And then you would have the odd DJ. So obviously DJ Rap and Chemistry and Storm are like some of the most iconic names, but there have been so many other women DJing and producing as well over the years. It's slowly improving, but I'm still seeing a lot of events, even with live streaming, where they'll have one token woman. Yeah. It's like, well, one isn't really enough either. You need to, if you've got a lineup of 8 DJs and a few MCs, why can't half of them be women?
I'm actually going to come back to you on exactly the drum and bass and jungle scene specifically and what you've been involved in. Sarah, I do want to hear your opinion on the topic of tokenism.
I think I kind of agree with you, Taylor. I just think, like, book me because you think I'm good. I don't want to be at a gig if I've just been booked because I'm a woman. I want to be booked because of my skill and because of my taste, and that's because that's why the other DJs are there. I do think it is a problem. I think people, maybe promoters, are just going, right, we need some women. Let's just get those on, and I think it should be really, it's down to talent, really. But do we take advantage of it? Well, I don't know. In a way, yeah, I suppose. I'm not saying I'm taking advantage of it, but if I don't know if people are giving you that opportunity, but the main thing for me is that you need to be getting booked because you're good at what you do, not just because of the way you look or because you're a woman, because I don't think that's really helping anything, is it?
I guess sometimes it's also a matter of taking up space, right? Knowing that maybe you in that moment were a token, but other girls don't have to be aware of that, and they just see someone that they look up to and relate to and think, I can do that as well.
Absolutely, because I think that's, for me, one of the things that stopped me from getting into DJing for a long time was confidence, because I didn't see enough women doing it. And so I was kind of afraid of doing it. And it was only when I got to like my mid-20s, I met some girls who DJed, and I was like, yes, you mix, right, wicked. And that's got me into it. I think, we need more women doing it, and then people will get into it.
Absolutely. We are still here in the Rinse and Size studios, and I am talking to my three guests, Flight, Sarah Story, and Taylah Elaine, about International Women's Day and kind of our experiences in DJing, broadcasting, and all around just being women. Flight, I want to talk to you about EQ50, an amazing project that you are heavily involved with. Who else are you working with?
So there's 6 core members, right? Myself and Mantra, who promotes Rupture and runs the label Rupture. We are co-conveners, and then we've got Sweet Pea, who's a DJ, producer, radio host. She takes care of all our social media, so looks after the Instagram and Facebook. We've got a private Facebook group and all that kind of thing. MC Chickaboo, who's a legend in music, full stop. She was the first ever jungle MC. She started in about 92. She's an all-round amazing woman. Jenna G is one of our organising members, and Ali Cat, who's a DJ label owner as well, and co-runs ESP, which is quite a big agency in drum and bass. And
also the kind of idea about EQ50 was to kind of give underrepresented artists within the world of drum and bass a voice and kind of bringing talent together. You've already mentioned this, and I think a lot of people are aware of this, especially when festival flyers, I think about 2 years, came about, and you know how they were just blocking out all the men's names.
There were hardly any names left on
and
the
flyer. Drum and bass / jungle festivals, there were just maybe 1 or 2 names. What is it about that scene? According to your own experience, or, you know, we're not all saying what we're saying is fact. It's what we have experienced and that we want to share with people. What do you think it is, according to you, that we still see so much male dominance within those sounds and these subcultures?
I don't know. It's really weird because the music has been seen as this really futuristic, forward-thinking sound and style over the years, but socially, it's pretty backwards. I mean, the scene is still pretty homophobic, transphobic. It's very sexist. To be fair, a lot of men are supportive, and they have been very supportive of me and others over the years. But in general, they're just happy for it to still be a boys' club. And I really couldn't tell you why that is. You'd have to ask the men, really. Right. But yeah, with EQ50, I mean, we're hoping, well, we are starting to change things. We just launched our mentorship last year, which is a multi-label mentorship. It's the first one that's ever happened in our music. And we're working with 5 established labels. And we paired them up with, we've actually got 6 mentees. And 2 are working with Ram Records, nice. 1 with V Recordings, 1 with Critical, 1 with Function, which is Digital's label, and 1 with, shame, I've just forgotten the other one.
Oh, no.
Critical, V, Function, Ram, Shogun Audio, Friction's label. So we've got 6 mentees working with them, and the mentorship lasts for 12 months.
Wow.
And they'll just learn all the ins and outs about business, releasing. They'll work closely with the label heads on A&R, one-to-one sessions with label-affiliated artists. They've actually got their second group masterclass tomorrow night when we're recording this, and that's with Tice from Noisier He's going to do a session on composition, workflow and mindset. So it's just trying to pull all of our contacts of these really experienced men and just say, look, here's a group of women and non-binary people.
This sounds really, but
do your thing and just show them a bit of what you're about and what you've done.
It sounds like a really thoughtful and carefully put together mentorship.
We spent a long time talking about it and thinking about it before we actually launched it. So it was probably over a year in the making, maybe getting on for 18 months. We were discussing it, thinking, it's something that we'd love to do eventually. But we've got a fabulous advisor, a woman called Alison, who's worked for the UN and actually organised a global mentorship for women working in media and journalism. And she's advised us a lot and has helped us get to this point pretty much. And luckily the labels were up for it as well. We approached them and they all kind of jumped on board straight away, which was nice. There were one or two who we didn't receive replies from, but
there's always a few on there.
Yeah, it's really positive and it's really exciting. And the mentees are all really buzzed. Some of them have signed tracks already. So it's good steps.
This sounds really, really, really impressive. Honestly, I'm not part of the program, but it excites me. Well done on that, all of you. That's so impressive, especially because it sounds like you're showing people all the different aspects within the industry that they could come across.
I interviewed Danny Dyer on the red carpet. This was years ago. And the video went onto Lad Bible and went viral, like 7 million hits. I was in Aldi car park in my gym kit in my car and my phone literally melted. I was like, I've had 1 million hits, like what? And he came onto me in the video. I was just saying bye to him in the interview. And the amount of trolling I got online from people saying it was me, I bet you slept with him afterwards, and all these people calling me all of the names under the sun. And I literally stood there. I did nothing wrong. I thought it was like, there's two ways you can go with stuff like that. You can get really upset because it's out of your control, or you can just kind of laugh and take the piss out of it. And that's what I did. And on my radio show, we did mean tweets, and I'd read out the stuff that were trolling me saying it, because it was just so ridiculous. And I thought, I need to highlight how ridiculous this is. Like, it's crazy what people say online.
That's incredible. And also, the thing is, like, did anyone say anything about Danny, like, at all?
There was probably a couple of comments like, oh yeah, like he's obviously drunk or whatever, but it was all kind of aimed towards, oh, she's a slag and stuff like that. And I'm like, what?
You told me about a different story at a festival as well that got you a little bit.
Yeah, earlier on we were saying, I can't remember what point we were talking about, but I just remembered, I'm kind of fed up with people saying, oh, she slept with someone to get that job, or who's she going out with to get that job. Because I've never done anything like that, because I've just, I'm good at what I do, and that is all I need to do. I'm not going to use anything else. And yeah, I had a girl actually come up to me at a festival, and she said, oh, you're the girl that sucked away to the top. I was like,
oh my God.
What? And I knew that her boyfriend had said something to her. And I've not done anything like that to get a job. And when I went over to confront him about it, his kind of face just, he didn't know what to say, because he knew he was so in the wrong, and he knew that he was lying. And I just thought, why do people have to assume that because I've got a good job, I've achieved something, I've had to sleep with someone to get it? Am I not just good at the job?
That's horrible.
So frustrating.
I just want to quickly put my 2 cents in there, just for the people who are listening and who have had these thoughts about women and how they got there. First of all, let's move the blame, because if a woman got a very wanted position by performing sexual acts, the fault lies with the man who gave that position to someone that isn't good enough for it anyways. So instead of you being mad at her, he's the idiot, really and truly. You can't be mad at her. At the end of the day, everyone's trying to pay their bills. Everyone's trying to, live their dreams. And really and truly, we should be looking at the decision makers here, because they're the ones who are creating these cracks for people to slip through anyways. So I think that's so interesting that is something that keeps coming up, because, and what if someone did? Whose problem is that really? Can you blame her? I certainly can't. But we need to stop assuming that. And what's even worse is that it just completely disregards the potential of having any sort of talent or skill set other than your body, which is then no longer autonomous to you. Do you know what I mean? It's so deeply psychological and emotionally just, it's a prison really that we're trying to escape from.
Yeah.
So.
And I think a lot of people, I don't know, maybe it's changing now, but I still meet men who think it's like a joke and it's an okay thing to say. And I'm like, it's not. Like, I wouldn't say that to you.
Exactly. No.
It also, it also comes in even more like subtle ways of like, you know, we're all DJs and it's very male dominated and we're around a lot of males. Some of those males rappers, some of those males DJs. And I sometimes feel like just being around them, sometimes people assume like, oh, you know, she's really close with that person. That's how she got it. Or, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, if I was just around a bunch of women, would you assume that my female friend got me that job? Or did I then get the job myself?
Absolutely.
You know?
And we don't think anything of it if someone works in finance and they start dating someone within finance. That's normal. But God forbid you're a DJ and you start dating another DJ.
Do you know what I mean? Or a rapper at that.
Guys, just think about it this way. This is our office. So it is very likely that someone might end up in a romantic affair with someone within their office. That's the only way to think about it. Next time someone says that, you tell them that, Sarah. Honestly, sorry that happened to you.
It's fine.
Moving forward, we've talked about all being DJs. We're also all involved in radio in different ways in this room. Taylah, you actually are the founder of an online radio station. Please tell me, why did you feel the need to start a station? What was going through your mind when you thought of the idea?
So there was a few reasons actually, but one of my main reasons is that I really disliked doing radio myself.
Why?
So when I started DJing, I just wanted to play. Like I really just wanted to play. And I feel like, you know, I like jumped around a few stations, just like guesting and stuff. And one of the main things that always came up was like, oh, you know, you have a great radio voice, you should talk. And I don't really love talking that much. Unless like, you know, it's something I want to talk about. But on the spot, like on radio, I just didn't want to do that. And I didn't like the pressure. I also didn't like the cleans. There was just like a few things, and like sometimes having to like stick to a genre or like, you know, just those things that I just didn't like. So +1 radio for me is a space where it's just like, you know, people are always like, oh, you know, do I have to play this? And I'm like, no, you can play whatever you want. Like this is mainly a space for like, you know, fresh faces or like DJs that don't have that much experience to just like do whatever they want and just like learn a little bit if anything and experiment and just like DJ. You know, if you want to talk. If you don't want to talk, you don't have to talk. So that was my main reason for doing that, because it was something that like I probably would have wanted when I started out. So I just don't want anyone to feel pressured on +1 radio. Also, you know, most of our residents are women, which I felt was really, and to be honest, it just happened to be that way. It wasn't like you know, I need to get this many numbers. It was just, I just really was during this lockdown especially, I was just looking for a lot more DJs. I just happened to see a lot more women that I hadn't heard of before. So they take up quite a large amount of our residencies, which is nice.
That's amazing. And, you know, Sarah, we've already talked about you being a broadcaster on stations that we all know and look up to and respect so much. Flight, from holding down some really heavyweight residencies on both national and local regional stations, but then also working and producing radio. I'd like to ask you all, it does seem, even though the numbers are shifting, and we can actually visually see that when we step into radio stations more and more, I mean, pre-COVID and hopefully quite soon again, there does seem to be this idea that, and you've mentioned this, funnily enough, women are more daytime, which we associate with talk radio, presenting. And then when we go into the world of specialists, so we're talking DJs, more freedom of curation, less talking, more headsy, more knowledgeable. We still see that is male dominated. Is this changing? How is it changing? What can we do? Or who are some important names that have helped change this? I'll start with you, Flight.
I think it is very slowly changing, and the internet has definitely helped that. It's helped women become a lot more visible, not just in radio terms, but with DJing and just having a presence online. I think, to big up Radio 1 a little bit, I think their residency series has helped a little bit in that, because they have included some women on the rotation. To be honest, I work in radio, but I don't really listen to loads of it.
Amazing. That's a whole different conversation.
But yeah, I think the internet and online stations, I mean, hearing about Plus One, I hadn't heard of it before today, and really respect to you, because it sounds incredible. Respect to you for setting that up. Stations like that, and oh my God, No Signal.
Yes, so we were talking about earlier.
all these newer and fresh ideas that are being set up and started by young people, really. Everyone needs to look to young people, because they're leading the way.
Absolutely.
They're a lot more together and knowledgeable when it comes to social issues on the main part, I think, particularly working in music. They're a lot more open-minded than people of my generation and above, I think, like the founders and pioneers of musics. Yeah. I'm trying to think of it. So I always go blank when people ask me for names.
I'll give you some time to think. Well, I talked to Sarah. We've talked about you being in many different radio studios, some of the biggest names that we know, actually. How has this experience been for you? Like you said, you're a big electronic / dance music fanatic. What has that been like?
For me, I look up to broadcasters like Annie Mac. She's really...
she was on my list, yes.
Yeah, she's really paved the way. And Sarah Cox. I know Sarah Cox was more daytime, but those two, I love it because they're best friends as well. And they are the whole reason why I got into radio. And I think what Annie's done is she's just changed so much. She's got a festival, and she's got her brand, and she is like the queen of dance music. And I think she's done so much for radio and getting girls into electronic music. You got presenters like B-Traits as well. She's done a lot. And like I said, the residency, Radio 1 residency, there was so many females on that, which I think is great. I hope things are changing. I think the BBC is great for a balance of male female on the Friday night lineup, definitely. I just hope that other radio stations kind of follow that as well, because I have found that certain places just tend to kind of hire the same people. I'm like, they're just the same people over and over again. Like, come on, give us
the same rotation,
diversity. That they all look the same, they all sound the same. It's like, come on. But yeah, I think the person for me who's really kind of smashed it in dance music is Annie Mac.
I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. What do they look and sound like when you say they look and sound the same?
They're all white men with quiffs.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But yeah, it's true, right? And it's not hidden, is it?
It's really not hidden, but it is to their mind, maybe, because they don't see it. There was a picture, actually, and I showed it to my friend, and I said, and he's a white man with a quiff. But he sees it, right? And I said to him, what's wrong with this picture? And it was just a lineup of white men with quiffs and one black girl in the middle. And I just was like, there's a lot going on in this picture that's wrong. Until they see that and change that might not change. Yeah. But I hope it does.
Sticking on this note of celebrating, I mean, let me just give us all the floor to shout out some women that you feel like have been very pivotal in making way in whatever way that is. Whoever comes to mind first.
I've actually remembered some names.
There we go. I knew that minute would help.
She's back in the room.
I lose my thread sometimes, sorry. In drum and bass and jungle, I have to big up DJ Amma and Sheba Q. They're a couple of younger black women who are great DJs. Sheba Q has actually got her debut release coming out soon, so she's on a production tip as well. I always have to big up the Six Figure Gang, because I think they're incredible individually, but as a collective as well. DJs, producers, host radio shows. And then going back like years, my main influence was Chemistry and Storm. Just the look and the sound of them was amazing and took my head off. But I think I always try and big up the women who came before me, whether they were DJs or not. So all the women who supported me when I was coming through and were there in the beginning, and they're still there working in music. Any woman who's involved in it, really, who's trying to forge their own path and like plant some roots in the music and take it forward.
Love that. Taylah?
I'm going to mention Bossy London because they're really good friends of mine, and they've always been very big on like the female lineups. They definitely put on a lot of fresh faces and like new girls. I think they were one of my first bookings when I first started DJing, and I'd like barely known them. And yeah, I love that they do that. I love that they always work with women and men, but they're just very, you know, for the girls in music, always putting on, you know, I feel like there's a lot of women, a lot of younger DJs, and their first gig was most likely like a Bossy London party, which I think is great. So
I think also for me to just give, you know, credit where credit is due. Someone like Josie Rebel is someone I think has been very important.
Amazing.
For talking about Black women, also the kind of the embodiment of I don't have to justify why I go from one end of the spectrum sound-wise to the other. Oh, I think, you know, she's the embodiment of, you know, this, I know my music, and you either listen to me and I'm going to give you an opportunity to be educated and enjoy yourself and discover sounds that maybe you didn't think were for you to enjoy. And then I think a follow-up from Josie is my dear friend Karista from the Netherlands.
Oh, she's wicked as well.
Absolutely, who I've seen, another strong Black woman who has broken so many barriers, you know, starting off as a DJ, now being the headliner, the most respected on all the lineups, and starting a label for just passing it on. And with both of them, what I enjoy the most is they simply exist according to their own rules. Like, you don't see them apologizing for nothing. They don't have to make excuses. They're there and they know why they're there. And I think those are like great names for other, you know, young women to look up to and kind of soak up some energy from.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with you on those couple. And also Shy One and the Babes London crew.
Absolutely.
Really, and I have to big up my EQ50 family because they're all amazing.
It'd be crazy if you didn't. I mean, you've heard of the amazing work you do. Let's talk about the UK music industry. So now, according to reports, it finds that Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups make up less than 20% within executive roles. But when we look overall to gender balance, or I should actually say sex balance, it is 40% women in these positions. Is this something that surprises you, Taylah?
No. No, not at all, really. No.
Long story short, no. This does touch upon intersectionality, right? So there's one thing being a woman, but then there's another thing being a woman of color. It seems then that the pool becomes smaller. What do we need to do, or what can the industry do in order to change that number and make that pool bigger?
So I think one really important thing to do is to do your own stuff, run your own stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's not the only way, but I found that's the way I did my thing. Like, the only reason I'm DJing is because I threw my own parties and put myself on the bill.
Right.
I would have had no idea how to do that if I didn't just make that move and do that. And I feel like a lot of the people I'm around all do that too. They all start their own platforms. And I think it's a great way to change that. So, yeah.
Sarah, how do you feel about the, you know, zooming out a little bit from what we've talked about, which is broadcasting and DJing, which is kind of being the talent at the forefront? How do you feel about the opportunities when it comes to the roles that we don't see as much, the more executive and decision-making roles and parts?
Well, there is definitely an imbalance, and that does need to change. And how do we change it? We need the people at the top to change it, but they don't really, some of them don't really want to. And maybe it might be quite difficult. I imagine if you're the one woman in the room and there's all those men, that's also quite daunting as well. So I don't know how they change it. They need to do something. Needs to change because otherwise the imbalance is just always going to be there, isn't it? And I agree with you, Taylah. I think starting something of your own is such a great thing because you're in charge. It's your brand at the end of the day, and you can do whatever you want. I wanted to start a podcast like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was pitching it to all these companies and all these people really high up, and none of them were taking it on. And over lockdown, I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to do this myself. I've got a mic in my bedroom. I've got a duvet. I've got Zoom. I can get the guests. I'll just DM them on Instagram. And I started my own podcast. And I know now that I can take this and I can make it a brand and I can do so much stuff with it. And I think, taking control of your own thing. Because the people at the top until they die off, things might not change. Cut that bit out.
Hey, you said it, not me. But no, it's true. Sometimes, well, I guess it goes to what Flight was saying, right? You need to listen to the younger people or else change won't really happen soon enough. Yeah. You're still listening to our International Women's Day conversation brought to you by Size and Rinse, and I'm joined by Taylah Elaine, Sarah Story, and DJ Flight. I want to step even further out, even outside of the music industry. There's been 2 very important movements in the last couple of years that have come to the surface, and there's no way anyone has missed it. I'm talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and Me Too. How important were these 2 movements, even bringing it back to not just the music industry, but just being women in our day-to-day lives? Flight.
Incredibly important. Me personally, I found last year really hard dealing with the global pandemic, having to switch to working from home full time. I've been living alone for a while and I had to move about 3 months ago as well. My previous landlord kicked me out of the flat I was in. So dealing with that, plus Black Lives Matter and some of the projects, the radio projects that I've been working on was really heavy, but it's also a reckoning that needed to happen. I think that there still hasn't been enough accountability from a lot of organisations, whether that's the major labels who just put out their Black Square and the Blackout Tuesday Square. There hasn't been enough accountability. There's not enough people actually taking action and following through on things that they said last year, statements that they made. I think we're all going through a really rough period, but there are glimmers of hope and there are a lot of women all pushing forward at the same time. There are a lot of Black and brown people pushing forward at the same time. A lot of queer people. It's like everything needs to come together and kind of create this perfect storm. We are getting there, but it's quite a slow, hard fight.
We're definitely getting somewhere. Taylah?
I agree. I mean, I definitely, one of the things that stood out to me was all the statements that were said and very little action.
Nothing. Tumbleweed.
And it just feels like it was just a trend to a lot of people, or just something to save themselves. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we get there, we get to a better place, and I hope that people just do more and maybe say a little bit less.
Yeah. I think it goes back to, sorry to interrupt, it goes back to what Sarah was just talking about as well, when you joked, but really you're serious, when people will start dying out and leave space. Really, we need a lot of people to kind of step down from their positions. But are they willing to do that? That's the question.
Who was it? Someone really important recently said that women talk too much in meetings or something like that, and they've asked him to step down. And it's like,
really?
I mean, he was in his 80s or something, but that's obviously like he's still running that place, and that's probably why things aren't changing in that company. And unless those people at the top, like you said, if they don't listen to the people below, things won't change. But yeah, I feel bad saying that now. I mean,
I think last year definitely made it a little bit harder to ignore. A lot of people did have to make certain changes because it was hard to ignore. I think.
Yeah.
Talking about you mentioned the the black squares, we're talking about something that is coming more and more on the surface. You see it on your timeline, a lot more performative action, right? So I guess for a lot of people who are listening right now, let's target men, our male audience. What advice can you give men who want to be non-performative allies? Very important. What advice would you give them? How can they help women kind of creating a safe space for ourselves in this industry that is still feels very unsafe for a lot of people?
They need to educate themselves maybe a little bit and listen to people. Listen to what we're saying. If there's a problem, then address it. Don't just brush it under the rug. And if a guy's making a comment or whatever, pull him up on it. Don't go along with it and laugh. Stand up for whoever you're working with and don't work against them. That is the way forward, I think. Listening. And
just general support, like support women like you support your boys. That could be something simple as a little retweet on Twitter. Boosting women's mixes, production, everything, supporting live streams, buying tickets for events if they come back, when they come back.
They are coming back.
Just general support and, like Sarah said, some accountability, addressing problems.
That is the word, isn't
and also getting involved in discussions like this. Like, I've really enjoyed today, and you're all incredible women, but we need something like this with men. Discussing the problems.
Also,
talking about what they're planning to do in the near future, not waiting until like 2022 or 2023.
Absolutely. Go on, Taylah.
I just think also, they need to not be the problem. I think, they definitely need to look at themselves and look at how they behave. Because it's easy for people to be like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. But I feel like there's a lot of men that don't actually realize what they're doing and how they're... how it adds to the issue and the people that they're surrounding themselves with and why they're surrounding themselves with those people, especially in the music industry. I feel like they turn a blind eye to a lot of behavior just to stay where they are.
Yeah. Especially saying nothing as well. That's a big statement when you actually don't say anything in support of people that have been wronged or assaulted or whatever the issue is.
I think what we've seen a lot, especially on social media the last few months, is men taking a stand on when it comes to abuse from men to women, but still continuing to work with known abusers. And there seems to be, again, a double standard. So if it's a stranger, it's easy for you to make a decision, but when it's your pal, that's actually when it matters the most and it makes a big difference.
I was watching a documentary. It was on about 2 nights ago on the BBC, and it was an investigation into the music industry.
I saw that.
Did you watch it? Yeah.
Oh, I need to watch that
still.
still.
It's really good. And she spoke to one of the producers who worked with Eric Murillo.
Yeah.
And the producer admitted, and he said, look, I was in the wrong. He kind of ignored these.
It was his former manager, I think, even.
Oh, was it his manager? Or was it? And he was basically saying, well, he's got all these big records and he's making us all this money. So we're just ignoring all these women that had come forward and said, look, he's been doing stuff to me. And he just ignored it. And
they're all complicit. They're all to blame as well. Yeah. How can you ignore things like that?
Money.
I know.
Yeah.
Money, that is it. It's money, isn't it?
Yeah. I think I'm glad you brought that up. I suggest everyone, even listening now, if you have the time, please watch it, because that same manager, what is really important about what he does is he admitted, he said, you know what, now I'm older and I'm more aware of what's going on. I can't believe I saw what was happening and still turned the other way. And I think that's where change starts, right? No accountability, like you said, Fly. And I think that's really important. I want to end this on a note where we can give people something to look into that might inspire them, might make them feel a bit more educated, equip them a bit more, or just put a smile on their face, even if it's just that. What is something that you would recommend for people to either read, watch, listen to? It could be a podcast. It might be very educational or something about the music industry. It could be something that really just made you feel good. If you could leave people with something.
I can't think of anything in particular, but I do think while we're all stuck at home,
Yeah.
YouTube is your best friend. I personally think I've learned a lot of things about DJing without a set of decks in front of me on YouTube,
Right.
like just from personal experience. I know that I know a lot of DJs panicked during lockdown if you didn't have equipment. And it's, it's very pricey and it's very hard. But I still think there's ways that you can like learn and better yourself online for free. So
Absolutely. Sarah?
Whitney Wolf Herd. She is the founder of Bumble. She's a good person just to read up on her. She's self-made billionaire. She's 31. Like, it's incredible. And she left Tinder. She was working for Tinder, and she left because there was a sexual harassment case. So she was just like, I'm not working here anymore. She set up Bumble. They said that it would never work, and it's on the stock market now. I think it's like worth $13 billion now, and she's 31.
Incredible.
It's really incredible. So yeah, she's someone to check out and read up on.
Thank you for that. Flight. Anything that you found helpful?
I would say follow as many women as possible across socials. Just keep an eye on what they're doing, because there's a lot of excellent, great work being produced and made and released. Gaudem, I enjoy reading their articles.
same.
Yeah, they produce some amazing articles. Black Ballad as well, for black women. They produce some interesting articles to read. Everybody here, EQ50, follow us across the socials. And just keep your ears open and be welcoming and open to learning new things. And
Definitely. She Said So is a really good one as well
Yes.
to pick up,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
sign
yeah.
up for if you want to be part of a global community of women in music. And when I say music, I mean lawyers, agents, even like filmmakers that deal with signing and licensing music, anything you can think of within that industry or the realm, you'll find them there. And it's a great support group and also a good place to find jobs and opportunities that come up. I want to thank you all for today. It's been really nice just connecting and hearing your stories. I've learned a lot. I hope people watching this or listening to this feel the same way. And, hopefully in a couple of years, when we can reconvene, look back at this interview and think, remember when we used to deal with stuff like this? Thankfully, now we can only celebrate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to Saz and Rinse. I hope you enjoyed this conversation.
thank you for hosting.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing. Thanks.